gonna roll. Slush. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna roll and smoke you. I'm really gonna roll and smoke you, buddy.
8, 9, close.
Wait, this mole is big as shit.
Rewind and TTS up.
Oh, my bad. TTS is up. It's on cooldown. It's on cooldown. It's on cooldown. Actually, I'll make it one Dowie. We gotta make TTS a Dowie and on cooldown. I'm sorry. I'm gonna smoke you with the beat you. Well, that was a mall, yes, brother. Why do they make malls this big, buddy? Like, you're gonna find any store that you want, dude.
In 1995, greed, corruption, negligence, and ignorance led to the largest peacetime disaster in
Come on, asshole.
Korea's history.
8, 9.
What is with this bar on the top now?
Close.
Get the hell out of here.
Clothes. 10 floors of clothes and cosmetics.
In the mid-1980s, Seoul and other major metropolitan areas of Korea experienced
what part of Korea, though?
Incredible economic growth, especially in construction and retail. The 1988 Summer Olympics that were to be held in Seoul, Korea, would add to this major boom for Korea's economy. Much like you hear in other cities that host the Olympics, Seoul was pushed into aggressive construction deadlines, adding to this that they could not hire outside foreign firms to assist in construction and design. Local media alleged that the local and regional construction
If
firms
she ain't
were quickly
250, she ain't a lady.
What? Yo, by the way, has anybody I'm sorry, off track here. Did anybody get the clip of me beating the stick figure game or eraser? I need to send that to Derp. Or somebody post it in Discord and send it to Derp, please.
overwhelmed in such a daunting task. Following those booming economic years of the 1980s, the 90s continued this trend of massive economic growth, which was especially the case in downtown Seoul, Korea's heart and capital.
Oh, it is Seoul.
6-lane highways, high-rise office blocks, plush department store, high-fashion restaurants, billboards, neon, the bustling city center. Seoul was starting to look like something out of Blade Runner. Construction and retail firms benefiting from this
I've always wanted. I've wanted to go to Seoul because this one guy named what's his name lives in Seoul. Who's that one guy that does the eating videos? Ben Dean. Yo. Shout out to Ben Dean. Shut the hell up, buddy. Shout out to Ben Dean, buddy. That guy, he can eat. That guy can eat. You know, and he's from Seoul.
Began to expand unchecked, struggling
crispy
to keep
fries.
up with this economic explosion.
Oh, man.
Upmarket stores to try and cater to the ever-progressive tastes. Buildings growing larger and larger to accommodate all the people pushing this economic transformation. The 4-story below ground, 5-story above ground, 9-story total Sampoong Mall was the epitome of this new high-fashion, upmarket, mall-style department store. The Woosung Company, an outside construction firm, had began work on the Sampoong Mall, building the foundation, building the first 4 floors below ground. However,
the thing that doesn't match in this video, this motherfucker has like a hip-hop beat. You hear the back of it? I can hear like the hi-hats or whatever this shit is, and he has this deep-ass voice, so he's supposed to be scary.
Woosung Company, for reasons we'll get into in a bit, had backed out of construction after these were complete. The executives for Sampoong then decided to hand construction over to local firms that they had more control over. Sampoong's in-house construction firms, so to speak, finished the above-ground 4 stories and added a 5th floor, which ended up being a complete revision from the ground up, literally. These 4 floors and the 5th floor were not built according to the structure's original plans. The 5th floor not even being included in the original plans.
So this might be rest in peace. Bro, look how massive this shit looks, though. Like, buddy, imagine. Oh, how do you even find anything in this? It must be like in a small piece of land, and they just like keep making it bigger and bigger.
Added as a late addition. The Sampoong Department Store Mall would open in July of 1990 to much fanfare. Tens of thousands of shoppers daily were hosted at the Sampoong Mall, and in today's money, approximately $1 million a day in retail revenue.
Holy shit.
Unique at the time in both external facade as well as interior amenities, the Sampoong Mall was extremely popular. It was a central hub in this area of Seoul. Those unique amenities inside, more importantly, being the central atrium and the escalators leading from top to bottom. These incredibly popular indoor aesthetics were hiding a massive amount of corner cutting. They were hiding structural weaknesses that normal day-to-day visitors would have no idea even existed.
So this is going to be rest in peace to Screw here soon.
existed inside the structure. In 1995, cracks and leaks began to show in the 5th floor, leading to inspections on several occasions. However, no major actions were taken. Instead, the 5th floor would eventually become unused and merchandise would be shuffled down to lower floors, and the Sampoong Mall executives and managers would go about keeping the mall open regardless of these 5th floor inconveniences.
Hey, what the hell?
In June of 1995, these cracks and leaks became even worse, to the point where the vibration of the air conditioners could be felt throughout the entire structure, leading to even more inconvenience, such as no climate control during the summer, water coming in by the bucket load through these cracks, which led to more government inspections. However, these inspections were passed once again.
How?
On June 29th of 1995.
How? Wait, how? Because it was making so much money? Like, dude, it's gotta be. It's gotta be because it was generating so much revenue. Like, think about it. How much, like, they're probably taxing the fuck out of that 1 million that it's making every day. You know what I'm saying? So they're probably like, shit, we're making a ton of money just off of this one. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Oh, that's nuts.
Proper structural engineers were brought in to have a closer look at just what
they
the
just
heck
put a
was
couple
going on.
band-aids on this shit? Are you serious? Is that a band-aid?
Have a closer look
What is that gonna do?
at just what the heck was going on with this building's internal structure. So on that same day, those structural engineers were, needless to say, alarmed. And if you've gotten an idea by now of how the Sampoong company operated, when those engineers warned the Sampoong executives, the executives disagreed. These structural engineers attempted to impress upon them that it was crucial they evacuate the building and begin a more thorough evaluation as to how these problems can be resolved. Sampoong executives disagreed with this and did not take any further action.
Are you
on that
serious?
same day, the 29th of June 1995, just prior to 6 p.m., the Sampoong Mall and department store collapsed.
Oh shit, what time was that again?
Prior to 6 p.m., the Sampoong Mall and department store collapsed.
Holy shit.
The search and rescue efforts of this tragic and unimaginable disaster went on for days and then weeks, the final survivor, Park Sung-hyun, being pulled out after 17 days. Reports conflict.
How did that motherfucker survive? He must have found some type. He must have been like located near the drinking fountain or some shit. Because there's no way that motherfucker could have survived without water for 17 days. For 17 motherfucker days. Oh no way. Yeah, he must have been like parked right next to like where the bevs were, a vending machine or something. There's no way he could have survived without water for 17 days. But somebody's got to do an interview and ask that guy. How does he survive for 17 days under all this rubble?
Exact number, but at this point, roughly 500 people had been found dead.
Damn.
So you might be asking yourself, how the hell could something like this happen? Well, I'll preface it by saying, on June 29th...
Imagine being like right in between that split and you're like, dude, and you picked the wrong side or something. Well, what kind of bit badge is that? Or what is that? Destiny 2? What the hell was that?
The day the execs were warned to evacuate the building, they got out just fine before it collapsed.
Wow, what a bunch of assholes.
Remember those Olympic Games we brought up in the 1980s? This created a culture of construction and retail corruption in order to keep up with this economic boom that ended up sweeping the nation. It wasn't just Seoul and their metropolitan area that were experiencing this unchecked growth, it was the entire nation. This sort of economic growth would normally be considered a good thing, and it was in many ways, except due to this growth, regulations and building standards and engineering standards began to receive shortcuts in just about every way you could imagine.
So they're creating new land?
In order to accommodate this growth. This became systemic in Korea's construction culture, corruption, handing it off to the who-you-knows to just get the job done as quickly as possible. The Sampoong Mall was only unique in scale. In October of '94, a section of a bridge in Seoul, a major highway network bridge, collapsed during morning.
Oh, thank God this shit like just kind of stayed. This is honestly really impressive that this shit stayed in the same, like, it looks like it just kind of dropped down. Like, oh shit, what the hell? Like, you're probably okay still.
Rush hour.
Maybe not. I don't know what I'm
perished.
saying.
In April of '95, approximately 100 people perished during an explosion due to negligence at a subway construction site.
Damn.
By the time the final survivor had been pulled from the rubble at the Sampoong department store collapse, public outcry in Korea had reached explosive levels, and its citizens were not going to tolerate this out-and-out corruption and negligence any longer. In this era of economic growth in Korea, Sampoong was also the first to bring about a major investigation into an incident like this by the authorities. The investigation would bring on board a major university in Seoul, Korea, and began straight away. Some of the investigations taking place even during the rescue efforts, while the elevator shafts and other portions were still just barely standing. Taking photographs, measurements, installing sensors as quickly as possible. Some of the initial findings were that Sampoong was constructed in what's called a flat slab type of framework, where there are no steel crossbeams and the concrete itself bears the entire load of the structure. One of the professors was quoted as saying, "The fitting of the floors and columns and all the concrete is absolutely crucial in the design and construction, as they are the framework themselves. It has to be erected exactly as designed. It has to be perfect," referring to the original plans.
How would you ever make something like that? Motherfucker, we're human. We're not gonna be able to make that shit perfect. Like, come on, man. There's no way. These motherfuckers probably aren't even getting paid like that crazy amount. Like, maybe if these were like some crazy architect, Virgil Abloh type of guys, they're getting paid buco bucks. Then like they'll probably take it more serious. But dude, these guys are probably getting paid like what? I don't know. I don't even know what do Seoul people of Seoul, what kind of currency did they use?
Without cross beams in a flat slab construction, you cannot deviate from those original plans, as those determine the load-bearing factors of the building, and there are no other methods of load transmission on any of the floors to begin modifying these plans after you've started construction. These initial findings explained why the building pancaked so hard when it collapsed, like cards falling horizontally into a stack. After this, they found that substandard concrete had been used. Holed and pitted concrete was obvious to the trained eye. However, this was not the entire culprit, as they were not able to determine how much of the substandard concrete had been used now that the building was nearly demolished. They needed more hard evidence as to what the actual root causes were. Woosung had began construction of this foundation on a former landfill site. This fell under much scrutiny due to it being on a landfill. However, just because something is built on a landfill does not mean that it's built in a substandard fashion. They found that Woosung had done their homework. Woosung had built a very solid foundation on bedrock, and not simply loosely or cutting corners in order to build on this landfill site. After this, the investigators began digging into the original designs and plans of the building. They were astounded to find that this building was originally planned to simply be an office complex. This meant that it would not contain any central atrium cutouts. It would not contain any escalator cutouts. An office building of this design with flat slab construction would have no issues in load bearing. Sampoong wanted to deviate so much from these original plans that Woosung grew uncomfortable with this and backed out entirely. The center atrium cutouts, the escalator cutouts, removed a massive amount of load bearing. The fifth floor addition was even more of an issue, investigators found, as it went from being a retail level to a restaurant level, which meant even more load capacity was needed. And at the time, it was traditional for Koreans to sit on the floor and dine, which required heating beneath the floor, an additional layer of concrete in order to make this heating possible. The restaurant required freezers and coolers for the food, and on and on.
Holy fuck, man. I know, this guy's voice is really crazy.
The fifth floor was completely incompatible with what was already poor modifications to the original design. Adding to this, even more windows were added along the walls of the structure, reducing load capacity. The building was in dire need of more support columns, but in this flat slab construction, they have to be in line with each other from the lower floors all the way to the top, so that the load bearing...
And the top one was not in line.
Takes place evenly. When Sampoong and their in-house construction firms decided to add more columns, they did so without those columns being on top of the next column below. This was an absolute cardinal sin of building construction, as this transmitted the load between the columns directly to just the simple floor that each column was supporting. This would cause load-bearing columns to punch through floors above and below, ultimately causing the pancaking effect that investigators saw. But the building stood for so many years in this state. What was the straw that broke the camel's back? The massive air conditioning cooling blocks that were intended originally to be located on the ground, the building plans, the cooling blocks themselves, all initially planned for these to be on the ground level and not supported by the structure. When running, these cooling blocks caused complaints from nearby neighbors. Sampoong then decided to mitigate these complaints by placing these cooling blocks on the roof of the structure, a roof and structure that had already been pushed to its limit. The position in which these cooling blocks were placed initially caused more complaints by the neighbors once turned on. Sampoong then decided to relocate these air...
How? By the neighbors, motherfucker? You have how loud are these things? Yo, why not just maybe invest in something that's a little quieter? Because look at this bullshit. Look at this bullshit. Dude, there's cars and shit flying down here. You're telling me that's not gonna... Dude, they have to be so loud to be louder than, like, 20 cars in traffic. You know what I mean? There's no way.
Air conditioning cooling blocks again to a different spot on the roof, and during this relocation decided against using a crane to lift them from one spot to the other, and instead slid them on blocks, transferring their weight all across the roof, across these portions of the structure that had been strained so heavily already, which is what began causing the cracking, the leaking, and the spider webs that people could see spanning the walls of the 5th floor. The lead professor from the university performing these investigations stated, "This weakened the entirety of the roof, and cracks were clearly visible afterward. We concluded that a lot of this structural damage was caused when they moved the cooling blocks." The investigators even found more secondary issues, like additional cost cuttings in the support beams of lower floors. The columns did not meet the width they were supposed to be at. The concrete columns were supposed to have, for example, 16 iron bars, and instead this was cut back to 8. Every subsequent floor above...
No way they have that shit! Yeah, of course it's just gonna explode.
Undercalculated or completely miscalculated at this point. In addition to structure being removed to punch holes for the atrium for the escalators, Sampoong was found to have removed columns that got in the way of more retail space. This is why columns were placed sporadically and not maintained where they needed to be. The entire structure was...
So the support beams were messed up, okay? Support beams were messed up. Not enough pillars. The AC was on the roof where it was originally not supposed to be designed. It was supposed to be outside, but it was too noisy, and they slid this shit so it started destroying the... Like, bro. Oh my... And they added a 5th floor that wasn't even originally supposed to be part of the structure. And had the coolers and all this other crazy load shit. And it was supposed to be an office in the beginning. Like, how many things can you really mess up here?
Just waiting to come down all those years, and the cooling blocks being placed on top and relocated was the straw that broke the camel's back. And to top this all off, those structural engineers that performed that final inspection before the building collapsed, as stated before, they had warned the Sampoong executives that the building was at risk of collapse and to evacuate the structure. However, Sampoong executives noted that day's foot traffic and revenue was particularly high, and they did not want to risk losing it.
Damn.
And thus they only evacuated themselves. All of these findings inflamed the outrage of citizens.
Wait, what?
And the structure. However, Sampoong... And to top this all off, those structural engineers that performed that final inspection before the building collapsed, as stated before, they had warned the Sampoong executives that the building was at risk of collapse and to evacuate the structure. However, Sampoong executives noted that day's foot traffic and revenue was particularly high, and they did not want to risk losing it. And thus they only evacuated themselves. All of these findings inflamed the outrage of citizens and families of people that had suffered from this loss. This led to a nationwide...
They wanted more money? They just wanted more money? So they wanted more money, so they only evacuated themselves. Because they wanted to keep making money. Dude, money was the whole issue with this entire thing. I mean, of course, they didn't have enough big enough budget to hold all the beams. They wanted all this shit. Bro, why, could they not reconstruct the beams? They didn't want to like leave it down for like a month or whatnot, the part of the mall for like a month.
Revisit of how these high-rise structures were regulated. An investigation soon after concluded that 2% of high-rise structures across Korea met construction regulations and standards. 84% were in need of repair work, and 14% were at risk of complete failure and needed to be rebuilt. Public pressure from the families of victims lost to this tragedy, of those outraged by this entire situation in Korea, finally led to charges being brought and a trial held for the Sampoong executives and those involved in December of '95. On the 27th of December, the Sampoong chairman...
Life, motherfucker. Life and then some. And then some. Throw him in the coldest, smallest cell you could find, motherfucker. Infested with rodents.
Jun Lee sentenced to 10 years of jail time for criminal negligence.
What?
His son, Han Sang-lee, sentenced to 7 years for corruption and homicide due to negligence. This case opened the door that was concealing even more corruption, however. 12 other local officials that had been taking bribes in order for these types of structures to quote-unquote pass inspections were also found guilty. $330 million was awarded in total to the families of the victims of this disaster. The Lee family, the execs of Sampoong, also liquidating their entire family's wealth in order to contribute to this payment to the families. inadequate inspections, false certifications, corner cutting, corruption culture.
Life. We want to see justice, motherfucker. We don't care. The money's nice, okay? Don't get me wrong, the money's nice, but I want the money and I want you to get your ass for life. Life. We want life. Death, nah, life, bro. Think about it. Death, they get their, you know what I mean? They're like, whatever. Don't need to do the time. Did the crime, don't need to do the time. They can dip out with death, right? Nah. Jay, you know what's worse than death is like whatever that is. The confinement bullshit where they put you in a cell with no windows and it's pitch black in there. They, you know what I mean? For a couple days, and the only time they let you get out is to, like, I don't know. You don't really get time to get out here and there. That type of shit will literally drive you insane. That is wild, though. I don't like that room. It's like that padded room or whatever they throw you into. They only got 10
Put him
years.
in the Russian sleep experiment for life.
Oh my goodness, bro. Solitary confinement. Yeah, you throw a motherfucker in that for a month, he goes back. He's a different person when he comes back. He's not all there in the head. For a week. Give a person a week in solitary confinement. You know they're not the same person. They'll be having nightmares about that shit for the rest of their lives, man. It's crazy. That, you would go insane. Like, I'm not even joking. Think about it. You're in a dark room. You can only eat. You can only eat, go to the bathroom, and, like, drink some water. That's it. That's all you get to enjoy in life. That's the only thing that would be enjoyable in life, is literally doing that. There's also a white room. They only feed you white food. What do you mean white food? Like white rice? They give you white rice and that's it? Some chicken? White food?
Led to the largest peacetime disaster in Korean history. The Sampoong disaster site remained vacant until roughly the year 2000. Families of victims pushed for a memorial to be built along the lines of a park or something memorializing the victims. However, this was turned down by the local governments, and the site is now the home to Acrovista apartment complexes. A memorial sculpture.
Send their asses to Russia, no, Serbia, whatever it is, whatever that place, Siberia. Send their asses to the winter in the forest of Siberia, motherfucker.
Sculpture can be found at Yongye Citizens Forest in Seoul.
That's it? This little ass thing? Really? This little ass thing that people are just eating lunch there or whatever? Really? Really?
Families of victims pushed for a memorial to be built along the lines of a park or something memorializing the victims. However, this was turned down by the local governments, and the site is now the home to Acrovista apartment complexes. A memorial sculpture can be found at Yongye Citizens Forest in Seoul.
So like 500 motherfuckers died where they live.
Hey, thanks for watching, everyone. So
Yeah,
I've
no
decided
problem.
to re-upload
Wait,
this.
where is this? Is this Toronto? I don't think this is Toronto. Toronto has some shit like this. I've been to a couple aquariums like this, but when I went to Toronto, they had one of these. They had one of these in the aquarium. This is pretty cool.
That's why you might be seeing this and wondering, well, didn't you already put this on your channel, Sam? Well, yeah,
Found
I
your
did.
families, found your friends. It is, bro. That's so fucked. That's what I'm saying. That affects so many people, bro. Especially like the 500 people dying. That affects like thousands of motherfuckers, dude. It's so bad.